Imagine walking through your neighborhood grocery store, aisle after aisle. You see cans bearing the bright red shield, a symbol that's been a fixture in American pantries for over a century. Del Monte, once the gold standard of canned fruits and vegetables, is suddenly in the headlines for all the wrong reasons. Plant closures, layoffs, and, in 2025, a stunning bankruptcy filing. How did a company with such history reach this point? What can today's entrepreneurs and business leaders learn from Del Monte's high-stakes saga of survival, adaptation, and, ultimately, decline? Welcome to Behind Brand Success, the channel where we dissect the legends of business, what made them, what broke them, and the secret ingredients hidden behind every can. Del Monte's journey began back in the late 1800s behind the scenes of a rapidly industrializing America. In 1899, 11 independent California canneries undertook a bold move. They merged to form the California Fruit Canners Association, CFCA. This association laid the foundation of what would eventually become Del Monte. This consolidation was crucial during a time when canned food was a relatively new and emerging sector, and the market was fragmented with small local producers scattered throughout the West Coast. Interestingly, the Del Monte name itself traces back to the lavish Hotel Del Monte, one of California's grandest early resorts, located in Monterey. This association with luxury was deliberate. Del Monte was not just a product, it was a premium promise, a branding strategy ahead of its time. In the earliest days of grocery shopping, the consumer experience was vastly different from today. Shoppers rarely picked products from shelves themselves. Instead, store clerks gathered requested items behind the counter. There was little incentive for food companies to invest heavily in branding, packaging, or display. But Del Monte changed that. In 1909, it introduced the now iconic red shield logo, a bold, easily recognizable symbol across shelf after shelf. This logo would help differentiate its product and build customer loyalty in a way few competitors anticipated. Over the next few decades, Del Monte aggressively expanded. Strategically located canneries in California and the Pacific Northwest secured a steady supply of high-quality fruits and vegetables. They moved beyond canned peaches. Pineapples from Hawaii, tomatoes, and green beans soon became essential offerings. The brand grew steadily to dominate grocery aisles across the United States and internationally, becoming one of America's first truly global food companies. Del Monte's pioneering spirit wasn't limited to marketing. It was the first major U.S. food company to add nutrition labels on its packaging in the 1970s, an early move toward transparency and consumer trust that is taken for granted today. The company invested in new processing technologies to ensure freshness and quality, cementing its reputation as a reliable source of canned produce. As the 20th century progressed, Del Monte became an American household name. But brand dominance alone can mask underlying vulnerabilities, a lesson more relevant than ever in this story. One of the most complicated, and arguably most damaging, forces reshaping Del Monte over the past 5 decades has been ownership changes. The company started as a cooperative, yet over time, ownership shifted to large corporations. In 1967, the company renamed itself Del Monte Corporation. By 1979, tobacco giant R.J. Reynolds Industries acquired Del Monte, marking the beginning of a tumultuous corporate identity crisis. In 1989, Del Monte split its fresh produce and canned goods businesses into separate companies, a division reflecting wider shifts away from a unified corporate vision. Throughout the 1990s and early 2000s, Del Monte was repeatedly bought and sold by private equity firms, global investment groups, and industry conglomerates. Each deal introduced new debt, led to restructuring, and frequently changed strategic direction. This ownership carousel resulted in a lack of continuity, making long-term brand nurturing nearly impossible. The canned food division, the heart of Del Monte's legacy, became one cog in a vast machinery, without a champion passionately invested in its success. Del Monte historically positioned itself as a premium brand, emphasizing higher quality and superior taste. The name, campaigns like the 1980s demand from Del Monte, and consistent packaging reinforced this reputation. But in increasingly price-sensitive markets, with rising inflation and fierce competition, this positioning became a double-edged sword. store brands and discount labels increasingly offer canned goods at significantly lower prices. Some competitors balance quality with affordability better. Rising raw material costs, particularly for steel and aluminum used in cans, made it hard to keep prices competitive without sacrificing margins. In tough economic times, premium can start to feel like too expensive, especially for everyday pantry staples like canned fruits and vegetables. The mid-20th century was a golden age for canned food. After World War II, social and economic shifts, including growing suburbanization, the rise of supermarkets, and changing cooking habits, propelled canned goods to kitchen staple status. But, since the 1970s, canned food has faced a slow, steady decline in demand due to a growing health and wellness movement preferring fresh or frozen alternatives over processed and preserved foods, concerns over preservatives, BPA and can linings, and general perceptions of canned products as less nutritious or less natural. The explosion of convenience and ready-to-eat meal options from other food sectors. Despite Del Monte's efforts to innovate and expand into new categories, the core market shrank steadily. And since the fresh produce business was split off in 1989, now a separate company entirely, Del Monte's canned foods could no longer count on a diverse portfolio to offset losses. If the pandemic made the world stop, it at first seemed like a lifeline for companies like Del Monte. Panic buying and stay-at-home orders in 2020 triggered a surge in canned goods demand, as consumers stocked pantries for uncertain futures. Del Monte ramped up production to meet this sudden spike. But when restrictions eased and consumers returned to normal shopping habits, demand plunged much faster than anticipated. The company was left with vast amounts of inventory that had to be sold off at steep losses. This sudden inventory glut hit Del Monte during a decade-long stretch of declining profitability, worsening financial stress. While overproduction was a short-term challenge, Del Monte's long-term financial picture was weighed down by debt built up over decades of leveraged buyouts. The 1989 buyout by the private equity giant KKR was the biggest leveraged buyout in U.S. history at that time, saddling the company with mountains of debt. Subsequent ownership changes added more debt, with hundreds of millions borrowed in each transaction. By 2025, Del Monte owed well over $1 billion in long-term debt, with interest payments annually climbing close to $125 million. These crippling interest expenses strangled profitability. In fact, several recent years where Del Monte appeared unprofitable would have been profitable excluding interest costs. Because so much capital went to servicing debt, the company was left with limited resources to invest in innovation, marketing, or operational improvements. The repeated sales of Del Monte, splitting of fresh and canned divisions, and weak brand stewardship through multiple corporate owners created a lack of strategic clarity. Even when attempts were made to expand ownership of Hawaiian Punch, pudding lines, pet food brands, the company kept returning to its canned produce roots, but without cohesive vision or passion. The brand's lack of a long-term champion, someone emotionally connected to the heritage and uniquely invested in success, exacerbated malaise. Meanwhile, the competitive environment tightened relentlessly. Private label brands reached quality levels comparable to Del Monte at significantly lower price points. Rivals like Green Giant and Dole diversified aggressively into fresh and frozen categories, capturing shifting consumer tastes. Tariffs on steel and aluminum further squeezed margins on cans, driving costs higher nearly overnight. Combined, these challenges created the perfect storm for the once dominant brand. In July 2025, Del Monte Foods filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The company arranged over $900 million in debtor-in-possession financing to continue operations during restructuring. Management confirmed a court-supervised sale process would seek to find a buyer and position Del Monte for a stronger rebirth. Despite the bankruptcy, consumer-facing supply chains aim to keep shelves stocked with familiar Del Monte products, at least in the near term. The bankruptcy marks a dramatic moment for a company that once defined an entire industry category, but it's not the end of the story. Del Monte may yet emerge leaner and refocused, or fade as a relic of a previous era. What does Del Monte's epic journey teach us about building, sustaining, and rescuing brands? 1. Legacy isn't a guarantee. No matter how iconic, no brand is immune to market shifts. Companies must continuously evolve with changing consumer preferences, or risk becoming relics. 2. Debt is both fuel and fire. Leverage buyouts can accelerate growth and investment, but loads of debt can cripple flexibility and prevent companies from innovating when change is most needed. 3. Premium brand positioning needs constant renewal. Building perception around quality is powerful but requires consistent reinvestment and adaptation. If economic or demographic changes push consumers to trade down, premium brands can quickly lose ground. 4. A fragmented vision is a recipe for trouble. Frequent ownership changes and strategic whiplash sap momentum. Long-term commitment, clarity, and passion are critical to nurturing a brand's soul and customer trust. 5. Adaptation is survival. From health trends to packaging innovation, companies failing to pivot with market demands risk slow decline and irrelevance. Act 6. What does the future hold? Can Del Monte reclaim its heritage in a modern, health-conscious, convenience-driven world? Strategic buyers or investors may see value in its vast distribution network, historic brand equity, and market penetration. But any turnaround will require clear vision, heavy investment, and a willingness to embrace change. Failure to do so could see Del Monte join the ranks of many once-loved brands relegated to memory. We want to hear from you. What's your take on Del Monte? Do you still keep a can or two of their products in your pantry, or have you switched to fresh and frozen? Which other legacy brands do you think have been lost or saved by changing times? Share your thoughts, memories, or predictions in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the rise and fall of a food giant, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more business stories from behind brand success. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next video.